Tommy Tuberville, Brian Mast, Jared Ogles. What's the other one? The crazy one that's always saying the most insane racist Islamophobic shit about Ilhan Omar. Randy Fine. They are, I think, aside from Pete Hegseth and Stephen Miller, some of the most outwardly racist people in Congress. And that's saying something because fucking Clay Higgins and Tom Cotton are there. Like, those are open neo-Nazis. And you got Tommy Tuberville, Randy Fine, Andy Ogles, just going insano mode on the timeline every day. It's a banger response from Mamdani's account. Yeah, Coach Tommy Tuberville.
The enemy is inside the gates.
Let there be as much outrage from politicians in Washington when kids go hungry as there is when I break bread with New Yorkers. It's a great response. Bigots, some bigotry. Zohran, your comment reminds me of the affordability crisis and my plan to end it, which, like, redirecting to the actual issues is a virtue, right? I'm not gonna pretend like that's not a good strategy, but at a certain point, you gotta address it directly and be like, I'm not gonna be told that I'm barely a person by someone who can barely read. There are millions of people who are of the same faith, similar backgrounds as me in this country, and you are a dwindling, fading light in this fucking country. Like, you are a fucking flame that is about to be fucking snuffed out by nothing other than you and your ilk not being able to fuck. Yeah, you're a dinosaur looking at the meteor, calling it gay. There's a fine line to walk for someone like Mamdani, right? Because I remember it was gut-wrenching during his campaign to hear him talk about how growing up in New York, having to like hide parts of who he was, right? And this is something that every person from a marginalized background does, right? Like even people who are not from marginalized backgrounds, there are like parts of your background that like you feel, you I guess diminish, so that you are more in line with, cis, hetero, white, normative culture. Him finally addressing the Islamophobia against him from other campaigns. Finally, like he's coming out and just addressing it directly instead of redirecting to like the affordability crisis. Honestly, that's a common story for us Muslims. I had to do that a lot post 9/11. I had to tell people I was Italian sometimes to avoid headaches. Like that's unacceptable that we would put that upon people to diminish parts of themselves, part of who they are, so that people don't freak the fuck out. Maxive class back at these haters.
I just celebrated my first Ramadan with Zohran Mamdani at New York City Hall.
Oh, hell yeah.
Why, you may be asking? Well, because I was invited, and it sounded fun. And it was. When you aren't paralyzed by your fear of other cultures, it can actually be really fun to experience them, which is
one of the very transformative experiences I had in my life. Was I was one of those white boys that was like trying to find a different religion as a teenager because I was like alienated by like the church and stuff. And like most white boys, I explored Buddhism, right? And there is a Vietnamese Buddhist temple in Baton Rouge. And I went there. My mom went with me. She's not at all like shy about like exploring other cultures and stuff. She's very cool. We thought we were going to the English service, but we went at like the wrong time, and we were like, well, we're not going to come back in like an hour, so we're just going to do the Vietnamese service. We'll just see what it's like. I didn't understand a fucking word. Afterwards, every person, they did like a lunch service afterwards. Every person in that service was so excited that we were there. They were like, you stuck around for the whole thing, despite not knowing a word of what we were saying. You participated, you didn't like shy away from any parts of it. We want to like you to like sit down and have lunch with us. It was the first time I ate pho, like never had Vietnamese flan before. That was fucking dope. That was the best part. And there was a guy there, probably in his like early 20s, very clearly gay, and he was sitting next to us. He like asked me, I'm like 14 at the time, so your mom like came with you? And I was like, yeah, I can't drive myself, and she's not like shy about this kind of stuff. And like I could see within him his own inner turmoil. He was like, you're very lucky to have a mom like that. I wish I would have kept up with that guy. That was like the first time like venturing outside of like my small town, experiencing a different language, a different culture, a different religion, people from different backgrounds, like that weren't part of even like, what we were going there for. That was a transformative experience for me. and that people, they lose their goddamn minds over Zohran Mamdani doing iftar with people from different faiths. Like, Ariana Jasmine was there, friend of the show. Ari was like at that iftar, and like losing their minds over Rama having like an outfit with an exposed midriff at iftar, saying like, you're not a real Muslim if you're doing that. It's like, bitch, you're a Christian and you're talking shit on other people's religion. That's not very Christian to you. You can do whatever the fuck they want. You clearly choose to pick and choose. Ariana's base. I love Ari. She's great.
This is a lesson I thought we all learned when we were 5, but apparently could use a little brushing up.
Motherfuckers never read The Rainbow Fish.
Texas Congressman Brandon Gill, seen here celebrating his religion in a government building, called us stomach-churning and truly repulsive. Alabama Senator Tommy Tuberville, seen here celebrating his religion in a government building, wrote, "The enemy is inside," implying Zohran Mamdani is innately responsible for 9/11, something that happened when he was 9. So, as someone who was there, I feel compelled to tell you that we ate dates and chicken and rice. We talked about things we're feeling grateful for.
It's the #1 spice.
And then we went home. No one tried to convert me. There were no secret plots to overthrow civilization. A lot of you have been propagandized, especially in the wake of 9/11, to hate Muslims, and could really benefit from retaking kindergarten level empathy lessons, because it's just getting kind of weird. Why am I being yelled at by sitting Congress people for having dinner with a brown man? But what's worse is that the people propagandizing you to fear and hate are themselves committing unthinkable atrocities right now and using their religion as justification.
And Father, we just pray you'll continue to give our president the strength that he needs to lead our great nation.
This is a religious war.
Ramadan Mubarak to all who observe. And to those who don't, that's cool too. See how easy that was.
Dr. Winnaboyne explained to me one time, and it really stuck with me. At the core of all supremacist movements, whether we're talking about Zionism, whether we're talking about like white supremacy, neo-Nazis, is a perceived loss of privileges. Perceived because it is a delusion. You perceive that what your experience is, how you express your, existence, is not only normal, but is a privilege for you to do that. And that something that exists outside of that, something that diverges from what you believe is like normal, right, is a threat, perceived privilege. That if someone else is openly expressing like their identity, then that is a danger to you being able to do it. And throughout my deconstruction, which I'll never tell you that I'm done deconstructing it, right? What I've gathered is that you've heard the expression, to some, equality looks like oppression. But if I can expand on that a little bit, to white supremacists, if people who are in lower social positions, marginalized groups, get equal treatment under the law, then that must mean that since you are from the privileged group, that those positions would switch. When used to domination, equality feels like oppression. And what I'm seeing a lot with this rise in Islamophobia, and we have been seeing a rise in it, certainly post October 7th, but I think 2016 is definitely a bellwether for that. Donald Trump's, we need to ban Muslims from the country. I will say it does feel as though, and perhaps this is only because I come from the perspective I do, right? My perspective is limited because I'm not Muslim, because I'm not Arab or Asian, I'm not African, right, and all that. But the way I see it is post 9/11, lots of Islamophobia, legendary Islamophobia run. And over the Obama administration, that started to kind of take a backseat to homophobia. 2013, we get the Supreme Court Obergefell ruling, equal marriage allowed under the law. With every moment of social progress, there is an equal and opposite reactionary movement, right? So that loss from the right led to a refocus of like, okay, we lost the Obergefell one. Equal marriage is like constitutionally protected right now. We can start chipping away at that, but we have to focus a narrative on a even more vulnerable group. Trans people, bathroom bills. That's where it shifted to, like immediately after Obergefell. Islamophobia never went away. It just, in the order of magnitude, right? The order of priorities was, a couple rungs down.